We're now live on YouTube.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Please be advised we are on YouTube, live stream to the public. It is a public meeting. Also, could you please keep your microphones on mute just to save background noise and disturbance during the meeting? That'd be very helpful. Also, when you wish to speak, could you please put your hand up in the usual way. Myself or the officers will catch you if I don't on Zoom here. And we'll move on to declarations of interest and roll call, please. James, we'll do it all in one as usual. And then after that, if you could move on to the other members of the council that may be present and also take their declaration as well, please.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you, James.
Councillor Adams, do you have any declarations of interest?
None.
Councillor Brennan?
None.
Councillor Bullman? Councillor Catchpole?
None.
I don't believe Councillor Hartley is here. Councillor Holland? No, a moment. Councillor Karimi Gouvanlou?
Yeah, present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Kelly?
Present, no declarations of interest.
Can't see Councillor King.
On Councillor King, I've just had a text message from Dave saying that he's called in traffic, so he will be at the meeting late, James.
Thank you. Councillor Morrell?
No declarations.
Councillor Nurden?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Pratton?
Present with no declarations.
Councillor Riley?
Present, no declarations.
Don't believe Councillor Ryman Tubb is present. And Councillor Shaw?
No declarations.
And the other members present. Councillor Copplestone?
President, I have received the COVID restart grant. Thank you.
Councillor Crotch?
Present and no declarations, James.
Councillor Emsell?
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor J Leggett?
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Mancini Boyle?
Present, no declarations.
And I think that's all the members present, Chairman.
Thank you very much, James. Apologies for absence.
I have no apologies, Chairman.
I think I've seen a late one in from Sue Holland, just literally about 1 minute before the meeting. Late apology, I think.
Right. Holland.
Got about a minute before the meeting.
I'll
Just
record
flashed
that,
up.
Chairman.
And we'll move on to minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of March. Item 3 on the agenda, page 6. Won't go through each page. If members have already indicated that they've got an issue in terms of the accuracy on the minutes, please show. I've got you, Joe. Hold on a moment. No. Yes, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. I've read the minutes through for the 30th of March, and I notice on minute number 248 at the top of page 17, second paragraph down, it says that a decision has been made to close the Carabreck Training Centre. That indeed is not the case. We are looking to do a review of council-owned property, but the Assistant Director for Economic Development has confirmed that no decision has been made. Thank you.
In what are we talking about, Joe? Because I'm just trying to clarify the minute here in what the reference was as well.
Okay, it reports that the Skills Development Officer advised members that the decision to close the training facility had been taken against a background of declining funding. I think that is slightly misleading because no decision has been made to close the training facility.
Yeah, this was all in reference to the apprenticeship scheme. Sorry, you remember the apprenticeship we used to run?
Yes, that is minute 248. As I say, second paragraph on page 17. I think it is slightly misleading, that statement, because it suggests the whole trainings facility will be closed, and that is not the case.
I can see what you mean. So there may be confusion there. What the minute actually was referring to was the training we used to provide there in terms of the apprenticeships. So
Okay.
that stopped. So
Yeah,
the minute,
thank you, Chair.
Yeah. So the minute could just reflect that. Another member's raised this actually. I'll tell you what, as chair, another member's raised this. You're not committee member, Joe, but just for accuracy for the minute and clarity, I would agree on this occasion that we'll change it.
Thank you very much, Chair. That's very kind.
Okay. So I'm taking it there's nobody else here with any. No. Okay. Matters arising. Any? Peter, do I see your finger go up?
Firstly, thank you for providing the absence statistics. I assume that's you, Emma, is it?
Yes, that was me, Peter. Yeah.
Two issues. I haven't had a chance to read it and digest it because I've only just seen it this morning. Two issues that come to mind. Clearly, there's a lot of people who are off with mental illness problems. Presumably, we're going to look at that in some detail, are we?
So just on that point, we are. I think as I gave an update last time round, we've now got over 50 mental health first aiders across the organisation, and we've got interventions in place in teams where that is absolutely needed, and it's something that is a live conversation across the organisation.
I wasn't really looking for an answer, just perhaps can we focus on that issue for a future meeting, please?
That's up to the chairman.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I would like to focus on it for a future meeting because obviously it is of some concern.
Yeah.
The second point.
Just cover that one first, Peter. Yeah, you raised that as a matter arising, so we can make a reference to that for a future meeting, as long as the committee agree. Because actually, now talking about taking another step. So, would the committee agree with that?
Yes.
Yep. Anybody disagree? No. Okay. Right. Second point, Peter.
Second point. It's a question. Could I actually see the amalgamation of sickness absence rates across all types of absence, not just broken down into short term and long term? Could I see it as the whole figure, please, as well, Emma?
Do you want to drop me an email, Peter? Just explain what you mean, and then I'll look
Certainly,
what I can.
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll do that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other matters arising? None. Dokey. Okay, we'll move on to Chairman's announcements.
Sorry, Steve. Can I just say? Sorry, Steve. Can I just say I'm here now? I do apologise for being late. I've got no interest to declare.
Thank you very much, Dave, and make your presence known and the declaration as well. Thank you, Dave. On Chair's announcements, the only announcement I've got here really is, as you can see, we've got a very full agenda. We've had full agendas before when we used to meet in the chamber, and for those of us that have been on for a long time, remember that when we had long agendas, the chairman used to say, actually, we're not finished by 12, 12:15, and it looks like we're still going to be here for some time. We break for half an hour for lunch. We do have a long agenda here, and it's my intention that when we get to 12, to have a look. If there's one item left, we can take a 5-minute break, comfort break. If it looks like no, we're going to go on a bit longer, then to take half an hour break, which is reasonable for the officers and committee members as well. So something to eat. But we see where we are by 12, and we always used to do this as whoever chaired the meeting, because it looks like it could be a long meeting. So I'll move on with the rest of the agenda. Public speaking, James.
There's no public speaking, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item 7, Cabinet reports, and 10, item 10, COVID recovery plan, which is page 33. And I think that is Rodney, is it? James and Rodney. Who's
Chair,
going
I'll,
first?
I'll kick off if that's okay, and
Thank you.
Rodney can chip in as necessary. Good morning to you and good morning, councillors. Nice to see you all. So I'll be very brief in my introduction and take the report as read, but this report seeks to do three things. One is to provide ONS and Cabinet with an overview of the position around COVID, around both the ongoing effects of the pandemic, but also the Council's response throughout. And councillors will note in the appendices a really helpful infographic which articulates some of the achievements of the council throughout the pandemic by way of numbers of people supported, businesses supported, transactions within the organisation, etc. The second reason for the report is if councillors will cast their minds back to the summer of last year, shortly after the first wave was coming towards an end and we were in a position of thinking about recovery. We put thought into a recovery plan, which was something that ONS and then Cabinet endorsed and signed off. Obviously, that recovery plan was written at a point in time and without necessarily the anticipation of what would follow. Nonetheless, it sets out a really useful framework for how the council was looking to recover from the ongoing effects of the pandemic, both in terms of the organisation and the community and business support. And so this report seeks to provide an update against some of those actions that were articulated in that plan, some of which are complete, as councillors will see, some of which are obviously ongoing. And the third purpose of the report is to provide an overview of funding. Funding has been numerous and complex throughout the pandemic, both directly into the council from central government, but also via other sources such as via the Norfolk Public Health and what is called the Containing Outbreak Management Fund. The report seeks to give an overview to councillors of how previous asks for resource have been allocated to help support and the ongoing continued efforts around the pandemic within the organisation and in supporting businesses in the community, but also how the latest round of containing outbreak management funding for the council, which sits at £399,000, could nominally be allocated over the next few months. So I think, Chair, I'll pause there because I don't necessarily need to go through the report page by page, but that's what we're seeking to achieve. I'd maybe invite Rodney if he wants to give any specific commentary around the finances, given they are quite complex, but then be keen to open up for questions and debate, Chair.
Sorry, Chair, did you just say something there? You're on
Sorry,
mute.
I actually muted myself because I was rustling paper. I didn't want to disturb Jamie. I was being considerate there and I forgot to unmute myself. Yes, Rodney, would you like to supplement?
Thank you very much, Chair and Jamie. Again, I'll be very brief. Very much as Jamie says, key part of this report is very much the ask for what we wish to spend some of the COVID monies on. So very much section 6 is setting out our general unring-fenced COVID money. So very much the key table is on page 40 on paragraph 6.9, where it indicates that actually with the unspent 2021 monies and the monies we've got available for 21-22, we have up to about £900,000 which can be allocated to help support the COVID recovery, and very much we're planning on bringing firm proposals back for that to the next cycle of meetings in June. But we are just requesting some of this money is released very much to support the council tax team, because obviously there's been pressure on the team with people struggling to pay. So within this report, there is a request to actually release some money to cover that. And as Jamie's mentioned, the other main funding stream is a Contained Outbreak Management Fund. And again, very much on the table on 7.4, gives the indication of where we think we need to be directing this money to actually provide the biggest impact for the community. And that was all I was going to add. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Rodney. Much appreciated. Right, so we'll open it up now, members. Who's first in?
We've got Kenneth Kelly.
Ken, hello.
Yeah, good morning, Chairman. Question to both Jamie and to Rodney. Looking in 6.3 there, with the hardship money, we allocated 100,000 and we spent 100,000. Is there any need for us to roll some money into that and carry that on, especially seeing I think quite a lot of people will be into hardship once we come out of COVID?
If I perhaps take this one. So members will recall this was for the £150 discount from council tax bills for the 2021 year. So that's obviously ceased as a government policy for 21-22. But you will recall that the last meeting that members did actually agree on the 16th of March to actually allocate £25,000 towards specific cases of hardship for people paying their council tax support. So we have already set aside some money to help cover that. But this could indeed be one of the requests that's come back in June to actually top that up, depending on the situation in June.
Okay, thank you very much, Rodney.
Anyone else? Nigel Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. Yeah, just as a matter of interest, probably Rodney might be best to answer this one. Are we anticipating or expecting any further funds from central government? Or have we basically seen the last of it?
Certainly, we've just been given some additional money for some more monies for this year. So I think there's another £125,000 coming. But it depends very much if there's a third wave again. I'm sure if there was another wave coming through, there would be further government funding coming through. But I think we probably need to plan on the basis of what we've got so far is probably almost the limit of what will be given for government funding.
Yeah, thank you, Rodney. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. Anyone else?
You got Councillor King and Councillor Catchpole.
And Councillor Morrell.
Dave, do you want to come in next?
Thank you very much. Obviously, we are now talking about coming out of COVID. And my question is regarding the economic development team, or the economic growth team, I should say. There was a report that came to SEAC at the end of halfway through March that showed there was 6 vacancies in that team. Is there movement on filling of those 6 vacancies?
Chair, Phil Courtier or Tig Armstrong might be best placed to answer that question. I can see Phil grinning, so I'll pick on him.
I
was only grinning because Tig had just unmuted and we'll probably be able to give you a better update. Yeah, Councillor King, after SEAC, we advertised and have just literally that closing date has finished for those posts. I know yesterday when I spoke to Tig, there was a disappointing level of response to those adverts, at which point I'm going to try to draw Tig in just to probably give me an update in a public forum. But there was those, we absolutely went out to advert as quickly as we could, but there was a disappointing response. What is the latest on that, Tig?
Thank you, Phil, for handing to me at that particular point on disappointing. Unfortunately, the position hasn't changed. So we've got 4 posts out to advertisement at the moment. They do close today. We've had a reasonable response for one of the posts. Unfortunately, the response to the other 3 has been really disappointing. In the majority of cases, 2 applicants. So,
Can I just ask a question about this? Obviously, it's too early to understand or know why that's been disappointing. The pay scale for the jobs on commensurate, I think, with this particular role as well. If you do not receive the, applicants, etc., would you be re-advertising again?
I think we will have to, Chair. I think it'll require a quick post-mortem to kind of understand whether we need to do something differently. I don't think there's much sense in just replicating exactly what we've done over the last 2 weeks. So we'll probably need to rethink our strategy. We have just used job boards this time around. We may need to think about engaging with a specialist recruitment firm to help us try and find some people. But I think once we close tonight, we get a final look at the numbers. We'll undertake a quick post-mortem and come up with a new strategy.
Yeah, thank you, Tig. That's a really good answer, actually, because that's where I was going. I think you knew that, Tig, as well. Post-mortem is one way of looking at it, I guess, one terminology for it. Yep, and obviously we'll all be kept abreast of that, I guess, how we're proceeding. Thank you. Anyone else?
Sorry, can I have a follow-up, please, Chair?
Yes, Dave? Yes.
Yeah.
You mute, Dave.
Do apologise. Are these vacancies going to cause any problems in the application of the recovery that's planned in the report?
I'm happy to answer that, Chair. Those vacancies are already causing us challenges, and those that are in the team are working exceptionally hard with a number of projects and business as usual work, as well as COVID recovery. So there are existing challenges that we face, and those challenges will only be exacerbated the longer those vacancies remain vacant. And I'm not saying that lightly. It therefore is an absolute priority for us to try to fill those vacancies as quickly as we can.
Yep, and I think a number of us are aware of that, and it's been causing issues for quite some time now, isn't it? Okie dokie. Okay, is there anyone else before I move on to recommendations? Tony?
Councillor Adams, Chairman, I believe.
Oh, sorry, I've got Catchpole first, Sue Catchpole first, and then Tony. Sorry about that.
And also Councillor.
You there, Sue?
Yes, Chair. I think it might have been Councillor Murrell first, but mine's on a completely different point. So if his is on a similar point, maybe he should go first.
No, mine's on 7.4 in Appendix E. So
right, far away, Sue.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at this and wondering about the expenditure on homelessness. Have we got some sort of future date when we're anticipating not continuing our support for the homeless into temporary accommodation? I would like that to continue, but I'm wondering when that might be targeted to be ended.
It's an excellent question, Councillor Catchpole. I mean, it remains a really fluid situation, and that might sound like management speak for I don't know, but it is the honest answer. Every case is different. Every case requires some form of different type of temporary accommodation. The level of temporary accommodation we are continuing to provide is still well above the normal, if there is such a thing as normal anymore. So typically in the past across the two councils, because we tend to look at it as an officer corps as one thing, not two. So forgive me for talking about the two councils' breadth of service, but across the two councils, we'd typically be talking about 30 individuals or families being in temporary accommodation, with somewhere between 50 to 60 presently, and have been for some time. But there's always an ongoing throughput through that. So the team work hard to make sure that the people going into temporary accommodation stay in temporary accommodation for as little time as possible for their own benefit, and also because financially it makes the most sense to us as an authority as well. I think work we've previously done has looked at trying to model what we think the anticipated demand around homelessness might be. We've looked at an upside scenario, a downside scenario, and something in the middle of that, and base that kind of on the predictions of people like the Office of Budget Responsibility, projections around the economy, etc. And we feel like we have the resources we need in place to continue to manage the demand for the foreseeable future. If the worst case scenario did arise, we would need to look at how we would resource that. But I think our feeling is that we are well resourced to manage what is the most predictable scenario in front of us. But as I say, it remains a fluid situation. Obviously, our statutory responsibility is to meet any homelessness provision that is put in front of us, and that's what we will continue to do. So hopefully that answers your question. That there is an element of kind of reacting to the situation around us as best we can, with the best of endeavours to look at the data we have around us to help predict and model what we think we might have to deal with throughout the next few months and possibly years. Councillor Catchpole, I hope that answers your question, but please do come back to me if you need any more info.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Jamie. I was just checking that there isn't like a cut-off date beyond which anybody finding themselves homeless isn't going to be helped into accommodation pretty much immediately. But that isn't the forecast at the moment.
No, and it's a statutory duty we've got. I think that's what Jamie just said. It's statutory duty all authorities have, so there's no danger of that actually occurring. Martin, you is next.
thank you. Yeah, I don't know whether this is Rodney or Jamie or either. So 7.4, the table on page 43, the total spend there 46k. They've got the comp fund 399. So the 47,000. So that, when it refers back to table E on page page 70, I think it is. So there's nothing in for the 47k there. It says that the money can come from various sources and the unringed fence money, but table 6.3 has the breakdown of everything, and that all seems to be committed. So I'm just wondering where the additional 47k comes from, or does it mean that that particular element, the young person mental health support workers, will not be funded, and we can only fund the 399,000?
Yes, is that you, Jamie?
I can have a bash at that one, and Rodney can mop up if I get anything wrong. So I think what you've spotted, Councillor Murrell, is an error. Clearly there should be a number in the appendices to match the table. So we'll get that amended. Thank you for picking that up. Again, partly the answer to your question, I think, lies in the fact that it still remains a really fluid situation. So whilst we've been allocated £399,000 worth of containing outbreak management funding, and the criteria for how we can use that funding is listed in the report for councillors' information, which comes from government, not from Norfolk County Council. It remains pretty open-ended in terms of the application and potential use of that money. We obviously do not know what the future holds for us to any level of accuracy. Public health professionals are predicting some form of a third wave in the autumn or late summer. It remains to be seen if that is going to be a truth, and if it is a truth, to what extent as well, given the vaccination uptake being well publicised as very, very good, and particularly good in Norfolk, in fact, compared to the rest of the country. The extent to which that will shield us from a future outbreak and any potential future demands government might make on us as an authority or on the public around restricting their movements, it remains to be seen. So again, with the greatest will in the world, I think what we try to do is indicate how we would look to allocate the containing outbreak management funding, knowing full well there'll need to be some fluidity and some fleet-footedness in terms of how we actually allocate it in practical terms. Hence, I think the recommendation is written to have a degree of autonomy with reference to the respective portfolio holders in terms of how the actual final decisions are taken. I know it's noted in the report that the allocation of funding goes beyond the 399,000, and I guess in practical terms, we would either need to, if all money were completely allocated, come back and look at how we could allocate our own ring-fenced money from government to further a cause if we felt it was worthy of being furthered, or we will look to redistribute the money within the conf allocation accordingly, depending on how things pan out. I would say, on a personal note, that I think there's a lot of evidence around at the moment about the specific impacts on younger populations around mental health, and it feels like a very commendable place to be placing some of our attention and some of our resources, and we'll look to do that within the budgets we've been allocated to at the best of our ability.
Yeah, I think that was my concern, that was this area is really quite important. I just, as it was specified in the report, that was the one that was sort of like almost up for grabs as to be cut. So I think that was no. Okay.
No, and I would add, it's really useful to have councillors steer on whether these allocations are pushing the right buttons, addressing the agendas that you feel are most pertinent and worthy of investment. So that feedback's really gratefully received.
Yeah, and just to add that on what Martin's saying as well, all the indicators are around this, the mental health issue and youth, as you say, Jamie, all pointing one way. And we know that down at the Family Trust Centre down at Alsham, they've just had to try to get grant money for the provision of a mental health support wellbeing officer, assistant rather, for the family trust there and all the schools. So we know the demand's there and the needs there, and it's only going to get worse in this COVID situation. So I think Martin's point is really valid. So, when you mentioned the word steer, I doubt whether there's any other committee members here that would feel any differently from that, really. So just echoing the steer, Jamie, and obviously for cabinet members as well. that may be present. Thanks, Martin. I think that covers the point, Martin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Right, I've got Tony next, and then Nigel Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. My question really relates back to these vacancies. And I know you sort of really examined why it's such a poor response, but off the top of your head, do you feel the problem is pay? And if it is pay, I know that there are national pay scales for these posts, but would you consider exceeding the national pay scale to get the staff necessary to fill these posts?
Happy to respond. Tony, I think I'd go with your first comment that it's probably too early at this point to say exactly why. I don't know that. I don't know. I couldn't honestly say that I think it's pay. I'm not sure that it is in some respects. There is one job in there in particular where we're looking for somebody who's got something approaching Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors type skills. Again, I think the salary that we offered is competitive. That one, I think perhaps, we might look at, but I'm not sure that we need to. We might look at sort of a market supplement based on the current market for surveyors. But the rest of them, I don't know that it is. I'm not yet convinced that it is pay. And I think we'd have to try and pick that up as part of our debrief. I just very quickly there has been one thing that we've learned from this. We didn't post the jobs ourselves directly on LinkedIn. It turns out now that there's an emerging model for, I guess, their recruitment websites to scrape information off other jobs boards and then post that onto LinkedIn and then send potentially interested applicants through to a third party. And I've actually followed this through with my email through to a third, fourth and fifth party. So you end up in a sort of a wormhole of what look like jobs boards and still not find your way to our official sites where the jobs portal is. And unfortunately, what we've seen is that in the scraping of the information regarding our jobs, they've then reposted it highly inaccurately. So as an example, one of the jobs, a growth delivery manager, turns up on LinkedIn, not from our posting, as a job in Kings Lynn that's part-time as an entry-level position. So this is something that we've been unaware that happens, and apparently we have spoken recently to a couple of recruitment agencies in the last couple of days, and it's a new phenomena that's occurring, and that obviously has been very unhelpful for us.
Yeah, and as we said before on this, you need to do the post-mortem, non-applicant mortem, as you say, post-mortem, to really try to work out what's going on in the issue. As I said, keep us all informed, because be highly interested in this one, I think. Right, Nigel Shaw, you're next.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's coming on Sue Catchpole's point.
Nigel, could you just remove your hand if you can, because otherwise it completely confuses me. The little yellow hand.
Thank you. Yellow hand. Okay,
if you leave it up, you see, I think you permanently want to come in.
I probably do, but there we go. Let me try and remove it. Hold on. Yes,
thank you.
Okay, yeah, this was my point was on the thing Sue Catchpole mentioned about homelessness. I was wondering, what's the current state of play regarding vacant properties within the housing associations of the area? And B, what's the current list of empty properties, privately owned, that have been vacant for quite a long time? Because it seems to me that there are so many properties not being used that they could house a lot of homeless people.
Chair, if you're okay, I'll have a bash at answering that. Another excellent question. I don't have the detail to hand, Councillor Shaw, but I'm happy to take away if you need me to. But as a generalised answer, the housing team work closely with our major social landlords to look at what houses are being made available and how best to use them, be they to place families who are on the housing register or to use as temporary accommodation. And a lot of the temporary accommodation we use comes from that housing stock. So one way or another, the number of homes we have at our disposal is finite. The way we use them is up for discussion, if you like. So we have a really strong and constructive working relationship with both Clarion in Broadland, but also Saffron in South Norfolk, as well as Flagship as kind of the big three, if you like. And we'll be continually reviewing the position of what homes they have available and how we can best deploy them to meet the need that is presenting in front of us. And obviously, what I said before to Councillor Catchpole's question still stands, that on any given day, the cases that present will have a level of specificity to their need. No two cases are ever exactly the same, and it's always a case-by-case, day-by-day process to some degree. The empty home connection is an interesting point, but probably more of a long-term consideration. So there will be a number, and I believe some information was put round to Scrutiny based on a previous question in the last few weeks. There are a relatively stagnant number of empty homes that have been empty for a longer period of time, but there'll be any one of a number of reasons why those homes are empty. Some will be in a process of being renovated, some will be in a process of transfer from one estate to another, others will be just in a position of disrepair and needing to be addressed. But I don't know that necessarily the empty homes number is a short-term fix to a temporary accommodation position, but it's certainly something I will take away and look at in more detail. And if I can get you some more information, Councillor Shaw, that might better answer your question.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Nigel. Anyone else before we move on to the recommendations? Gone. Okay, so we move to the recommendations, and you've all had the paperwork. You can see this. We've got recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4. Could I just also make a point here, picking up on Martin's point that he raised, and then sort of supplemented, and Jamie made reference to as well. Could we also perhaps have a fifth point, if committee agree, and I'll ask in a moment, around us emphasising that we would want to ensure that future spending is maintained around the issue. I'm just trying to see the page number now. We was just on it, and I've just lost my page. In terms of the youth mental health provision work going on.
So it's in table 7.4 on page 43.
And the sort of members steer around this from ONS as well, Jamie, as you were saying. So we could also have a 5 there, just saying the ONS felt that it was very important that in the future that we do indeed maintain that provision and the current COVID pandemic, etc. James, could you just pick up a form of words around that, and then I'll pop that out for the committee to see if they're okay with it.
I can, Chairman. I would say just to maintain provision of young persons' mental health support workers.
Or funding?
And funding.
Yeah.
Support funding.
Is that okay, Jamie? You live with those words? Brilliant. Thank you. Okay. So
do you need a seconder for that recommendation?
Yeah, I was just going to thank you, Ken.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Thanks, Ken. So is that agreeable, committee? We'll show. Right, James?
Yes, Chairman, that looks to be unanimous.
Thank you, James. And then obviously the Cabinet can see that view as well, Jamie. Right, so, and the rest of the recommendations, 1, 2, 3 and 4, I'll put that one first because obviously it's like an amendment. Are we all happy with those recommendations as written? I'll move. Seconded. Thank you, Nigel Brennan. All those in favour?
It looks to be unanimous, Chairman. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you, officers, for for your support there in terms of this report. I'll move on to agenda item 11, page 72, and social prescribing. Kerry Gallagher, I've seen you here. Kerry, would you like to present, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. As mentioned in the infamous table 7.4 from the previous report, this particular paper has come separately. This is about using some of the Containing Outbreak Management Fund, but in the wider context of the development of social prescribing within the Broadland area. I shan't go through the report in detail, but just kind of cover some key points really. I know that many members here will be familiar with the concept of social prescribing, but for those who aren't so much, social prescribing is very much a nationwide trend, phenomenon, whatever you might like to call it. It's incredibly, it's built in its popularity and its successes all throughout the country in the last few years. Social prescribing at its heart is about taking away pressure from the NHS for things which are in fact welfare issues that could be dealt with in other services. I'm sure many will be familiar with the fact that people go to the GP for a number of different issues that are not medical reasons, and social prescribing is about using support workers to assist that person in a different way apart from using medical outcomes. So social prescribing is something that we aspire to deliver within Broadland. There is a service presently. It's delivered by the voluntary sector, and that was commissioned originally by County Council and now more through the NHS. And this ties in with those cycles and our aspiration to perhaps have more involvement in social prescribing in the Broadland area, which members have been very supportive of in the past. So social prescribing is our long-term aim. We hope that with the cycles that are in place, we might be able to make a bid to access some of the funding available to deliver social prescribing from 2022. What the Containing Outbreak Management Fund does is allows us an opportunity to get those community connector posts, which are the officers that would deliver social prescribing, into post sooner. We see and we are aware of huge benefits that we could see from having community connectors based within the Broadland hub. We know that the community connectors provide an excellent outreach service to people, providing them with a person to talk to about their issues and seek the help that they need. Community connectors are there to understand what's going on, not only within services that provide various aspects of support, but also to know what's going on in local communities and hook people in with that. So to give you an example, somebody, an easy one is somebody who's recently had a bereavement. Prior to that, they've had no need for support services. They've carried on in their lives, no particular issues. They suffer a bereavement and actually their life has changed in a certain way and they need a bit of a helping hand to allow them to get the support they need. They might need access to additional benefits. They might need some support needs in terms of meeting people. They might simply need to get themselves out and about a little bit more. They might have other bits and pieces, and the community connector is absolutely excellent as a role to work with that person and hook them into those things and support them for a short period of time, thus reducing the need for them to use additional and much more expensive services in the future. So what we'd like to do using the Containing Outbreak Management Fund, hard to say, is to trial 2 community connector posts for a year, with our long-term intention to fund these community connector posts using NHS funding that we know will become available in coming years starting from 2022. It is not our intention to have these posts coming out of any core funding from the Broadland budget, but it certainly is our intention to carry them on into the future. So this is part of a really long-term plan for us in terms of becoming more embedded within GP surgeries and being able to provide that support to people. Moving into GP surgeries in the future, however, would not mean that people couldn't access the connectors through other means. The connectors will always be available to be, supportive of anybody within the district, but it just so happens that we know a lot of those cases come to us in a GP setting because that's where a lot of people look for help, because it's a well-known institution and where people tend to go to for assistance. So I hope that makes sense, that the reason we've brought this separately is because this isn't just about the coming year, but in addition about our long-term plans for the future with this connector post. One of the other benefits of having the connectors, and something that we've been able to utilise the community connectors that are currently employed in South Norfolk, is they've been able to man the phones to allow us to be open until 10 p.m. The contracts that we had in South Norfolk have recently changed from the 1st of April, and it means that at the moment we really shouldn't be using the community connectors that are employed in South Norfolk to answer the phones in Broadland in the evenings, and we would hope that this would allow us to continue that longer service throughout the day as well by employing these two posts within the district. I think that's probably all I've got to say. If there's any, I'm happy to answer as many questions as possible, and apologies if I've missed anything, but hopefully that gives you a good overview.
Thank you very much, Kerry. So we'll open it up now. Sue?
Thank you, Chair. I think I really welcome the idea of having the community connectors within the council. I think one thing I must say is I am a volunteer with Citizens Advice. So that being said, I'm also aware that another place that referrals to councils come from is from the Citizens Advice offices. Now, there's a completely different set of people, I suspect, that come into the Citizens Advice offices off the street, so to speak, if they're out shopping or whatever, than do go through their GP surgeries, which I would suspect is a little bit further down the line. So one way of perhaps catching the cases sooner and before they get into even more difficulty would be to work with the Citizens Advice. And I know we don't fund that from Broadland, and I know we don't have an office in Broadland for the Citizens Advice, which is a shame. But I do think that's something that our council could look at, because the Citizens Advice have the multiplier effect of they work with volunteers manning the offices. So they're not paid for staff, and therefore the costs would be relatively low, and the support for the Citizens Advice offices or office could be much less than employing people directly through the council. And that's just a thing I think our council ought to consider. Thank you.
So I've got Martin next.
Thank you. Yeah, I really welcome this paper, and I think we have touched on it before, Kerry, but you've been very successful in South Norfolk with the connectors, and you've managed to very successfully gain funding. And the reason that we're asking now for some initial funding is because we're in between the period where you can go out for the funding. I wondered if you could just explain a little bit more on your past experience there with South Norfolk, that maybe will help people to understand what you've managed to achieve there.
So what feels like years and years ago, we started social prescribing in South Norfolk. There was an existing connector model similar to the sort of approach that we might look to adopt here, where we had community connectors working out within our neighbourhoods and talking to people and doing stuff. And we built on that in order to get funding for social prescribing. So GPs, practical people, they like to see something that's already existing that they can hook into their services, and we built on that existing model. And we were, I still don't to this day really understand how we managed to do it, but in those first couple of years we managed to get some funding together to look to test social prescribing in a couple of GP surgeries. Word spread, good news spread sometimes as good as bad, and we were able to expand all across the district. Funding cycles have changed. I've mentioned that social prescribing is popular. It's grown in its popularity incredibly quickly. And the NHS caught on to that. And the NHS are now the primary funder of social prescribing all across the country. So we've kind of just rolled with the changes. We've sought funding where it was available from in terms of social prescribing. And we're now in a position where in South Norfolk, we've just secured £1 million worth of funding, or just short of £1 million worth of funding for the coming 3 years. Now that picture isn't hugely different in Broadland. There has been a funding cycle, and that funding was allocated to the voluntary sector in the last couple of years. They've done a good job in many ways, but their model and their approach is different to ours. And it's something that we think perhaps we're in a slightly different position to do. Just to kind of explain it as much as I can, the district is effectively split into 4 sections. They all begin NN and they end in 1, 2, 3 and 4. So you've got NN1, NN2, NN3 and NN4, and their funding cycles are slightly different. What we've got in 2022 is an opportunity to seek funding in NN3 and NN4. So we would be looking at part of the district being hopefully funded by the NHS, and then in coming years after that into the other 2 NN areas. Not the catchiest of names when you're trying to explain it, but certainly there is a forward plan for us to try and secure funding for the entire district in the same way that we have built that picture up in South Norfolk. I hope that helps to explain it. But it really is a long-term plan with this. It's not a sort of something that we think we can do overnight, but it's certainly worth the investment in time, because we've seen such a hugely positive impact on our residents and being able to hook them into other services. And just to touch upon the point that was made by Councillor Catchpole about the other services that are available, social prescribing is all about all of those other services. It's about making sure that when somebody needs to be talking to the Citizens Advice, they're talking to them. When they need to talk to another organisation, they talk to them. It's about not wasting people's time, sending them to the wrong place, and helping them get that much more rounded picture of support. I hope that.
Yeah, that was, I think the explanation and seeing the total picture there, how and the future as well around the NHS and social, they've seen the value of this, obviously, Gary, you know. I've picked this up from London as well, particularly down in some London boroughs as well. It's really actually made a huge difference down there. So is there anyone else? No. Okie dokie. Caroline. Yes, Caroline.
Carrie, I fully support this. This is a brilliant initiative. Will this also support people with mental health issues as well?
Absolutely. So I'm absolutely thrilled to say that we have a member of staff who's got real expertise in this area that leads the team. And he's been really instrumental in making sure that the existing Community Connected team, which these guys would join, have undergone an awful lot of training, not to become experts in the area by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly to be able to recognise and understand where mental health difficulties might be presenting, and how best to support people to do that. So absolutely. And you tackle one issue and it has a real positive impact on people's mental well-being, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
That's great. Thanks, Kerry.
Okie doke. If there's, I'm just going to have one last check. If there's no one else, we'll move to recommendation. Martin?
Sorry, yeah, just a very quick add-on really was just to say that obviously when you look at the cost in here, but what is missing here is the cost benefit by having these people in place, and it's, you know, tenfold on what the actual cost really is in the paper. So
we've done some cost analysis, and I probably should have mentioned this when I spoke at the beginning, but we know that the impact on other services in the council in terms of what they're able to save through homelessness that might have presented, and other issues in environmental protection and all sorts of things is huge. By dealing with things early and having these connectors in place, we know that they take the pressure off of other bits and pieces and prevent escalation. And it's really hard to quantify that at times, but yeah, we know that that's quite significant.
Yeah, very good point, Martin. Actually, it has a knock-on effect in all kinds of ways, isn't it? But particularly around funding as well. It's a fool's errand to cut back on funding like this. It really is, and we've seen that elsewhere in government when sometimes funding for support staff in certain areas has been cut back, and then we've had a huge knock-on effect. It's cost us more money. and also more deprivation in some areas as well as a result of this. So I'll move to the recommendation now. I'm just looking at the time.
Apologies.
Martin?
Councillor Nurden, I believe, wanted to speak.
Thank you, because I'm keep on shifting the screens around, so I'm not necessarily catching everyone. Sorry, Grant, fire away, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just a quick question. Do you think, Kerry, that there will be an issue with regards to the recruitment of suitable staff for this connector?
I really hope not. We've been very fortunate to get excellent candidates in the past for the community connector role, and I think that over the years we've really honed what that job description looks like, and we're able to provide people with quite a supportive environment to really grow and develop in that role. So I think people see it as a kind of excellent opportunity to get into this sector and to learn a lot more. So we've not had a huge problem with recruitment to these roles in South Norfolk, and I can't see that that would be any different in Broadland. So I might eat my words in the future, but I don't anticipate any issues.
Okie dokie. So Martin, I do want to move on because we are losing time, and I sense that the committee unanimously is probably going to agree to this. So I was
going to second the recommendation.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. Thanks very much. That's really, really helpful. Thank you. Okay, so it's been seconded, moved by myself. Are we all in favour? Thank you very much. And thanks very much for also your complete passion in what you do there, Kerry, and as well, of course, because we've seen that adequately today, I think, to say the least. Okay, so we'll move on. So we've got the recommendation, which was 1 and 2, James, which I've just taken, we've agreed to, yeah?
Yes, Chairman, yes.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item, move on to item 13, which is page 87, endorsement of South Norfolk Strategy Planning Framework.
Chairman?
Yes?
I believe you've got item 12.
I've missed, yeah, you're right, actually. I've just shuffled it. You're right, I've shuffled the papers around too much, yeah. Yeah, debt recovery, debt respite scheme, breathing space, mental health crisis, moratorium, pages 78. Thank you, James. So we have Paul Harris. Would you present, please, Paul? And also Tony. Yeah.
That's Christian Cubitt, who's presenting on this.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. Yes, Christian, could you present? And Tony, could you just take over 2 minutes, please?
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, you are.
Okay, thank you. So there's regulations, the debt respite scheme, breathing space, and the statutory debt repayment plan. The result of a Conservative manifesto commitment in 2017, which aims to help people in problem debt access professional debt advice and give them time to get better debt solutions. So breathing space is coming in on the 4th of May this year, and the statutory debt repayment plan will follow it. It's still in the House of Lords at the moment, but should be shortly after. When breathing space does come in, what that means for us is every person that applies for one and is eligible, we will have to hold all of their debts across the councils for 60 days as a minimum. If they're mental health crisis patients, so if they're receiving treatment for a mental health crisis, we would have to hold it until that treatment ends. So they won't necessarily have an end date. So we would hold accounts anyway for people that contacted us that were struggling with debts most of the time. But this kind of formalises it and gives us more obligations. So it's going to create a lot of extra work for us, we think. So the impact assessment from the government, which is in 3.1 and 3.2, the figures from there predict that we're looking at probably about 15 cases a day across both of the councils. And that's in the first year. That's likely to rise each year as well. It's hard to know exactly what we will get, but that is the prediction at the moment. Most of those people that contact us are going to have a council tax liability. That's going to be the primary debt, I think, that we'll be concerned with that accesses the scheme. So that will fall within the recovery team to administer and deal with, really, because we already have links with the Help Hub, benefits, etc., and are sort of well versed in dealing with people with debt. So that makes sense for that to fall in our team to administer and to make sure that the people coming through from Breathing Space are getting the support from us that they need from other departments. We're well placed to do that because we already do it for all our other residents, and we need to make sure we're able to still do that as well for the people that we already serve that aren't accessing the scheme. So it's gonna cause a lot of work for us, and the team is pretty small at the moment. We only have 4 permanent members of staff covering both of the councils. We think the strain that this is going to give us on our resources is going to be significant, and we need to make sure that we're able to handle the additional workload that's going to come through from this and still provide the service that we are providing at the moment for people in debt. So to do that, we think we're going to need an extra person, but we're asking for one temporarily to start with for 18 months so that we can fully assess what the impact is going to be, and take it from there, really. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I don't know if Simon has anything to add, or Rodney, and then open for questions.
No, it would appear Simon hasn't got anything to add. Thanks, Christian, for that report. And anybody, any questions? If you put your hands up, I'll make a note of you and call you in the order that I see you. Any questions from anybody? Any on that page? Any on that page? So are you all? I will formally move the recommendation 8.1 on page 83. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. And are you all in favour of that recommendation?
Looks to be unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you, James. Right. I don't. Is the chairman back yet, or is he still not there yet?
No, he's not there yet, Chairman.
Right. Okay. Fine. I couldn't see him, I must admit. But right. So I think the next one is endorsement of the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework Update, page 87. So, right, Paul Harris, are you going to do this one? And if you can just keep it just to the main key points, given the time factor and the rest of the agenda, I would be extremely grateful. So is that you, Paul, are going to take this one?
Paul is not here today, Councillor Adams. It's Helen Mellors here. I'm going to present the paper very quickly for you.
Right. Good morning, Helen.
Of the key morning members. So this paper is an endorsement to the update to the Norfolk Strategic Planning Framework. It's the 3rd iteration. We first signed up in 2018 and last signed up in October 2019. As a local planning authority, we have a legal responsibility to engage strategically across boundary matters, and the NSPF provides the structure to do that. It is prepared under the Norfolk Strategic Planning Member Forum, and for Broadland, the portfolio holder for planning, Councillor Hempson, represents the council on this group. Paragraph 3.2 outlines on page 89, outlines the proposed changes to ensure it is up to date. It is a key document that we have a legal responsibility and obligation to sign up to, a duty to cooperate, and underpins our Greater Norwich local plan. And in policy terms, strategically, is known as our Statement of Common Ground across the Norfolk area. I don't think I need to say anything else. It's something that members have been aware of in the past. It's just updating in reflection to the white paper. And these shared objectives and strategic priorities are designed to improve the outcomes for Norfolk and inform the preparation, in this case, of our local plan, which is the Greater Norwich Local Plan, which already encompasses the objectives of the NSPF in its future plans. That's all I need to say, Councillor Adams. Thank you.
Right, thanks ever so much, Helen, for taking us briefly through that. Much appreciated. Right, anybody wish to ask any questions? Will you please put up your hands? I will make a note of you and take you in the order that you put your hands up. Right, Peter Bullman, I notice. Do I see you, Sue Catchpole? Yeah. Right, Sue Catchpole. I'm just writing them down so I know. Right, I've got at the moment Peter Bullman and Sue Catchpole. Anybody else put their hand up that I missed? Can't see anybody on this page. Can't see anyone on that page. Right, Peter, please.
Just to say, Chairman, sorry, Vice Chairman, I'm promoting you.
Yeah.
Chairman for the moment.
Yes.
We considered this matter informally at the place shaping panel last Thursday, and we were happy to endorse it. Essentially what this is an update of an existing document, nothing terribly controversial here. So I just recommend members approve this.
Are you moving that? Are you moving that, Peter?
I'm moving, so moving.
Yeah, okay. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second
right,
that.
Nigel Brennan, cheers. Right, Sue Catchpole, please. Sue Catchpole? You're muted, Sue.
Thank you, Tony. Just on page 80 of the document, page 177, that 9.6 is one page on education. I read it, it seems very thin. I don't know if there's a reason why education doesn't really feature fully in this strategic document. And also I couldn't see any reference to further education, colleges and so on. So I just would like whoever knows most about this just to explain why education doesn't feature very much. Thank you.
That be you, Helen?
Yes, I mean, education is a strategic objective that we look at as a county as a whole, and the county council are a signatory of that. And obviously when we're informing our planning decisions, it is about the future growth and where new schools are needed in relation to all levels of entry. So it does actually underpin it. I haven't got to hand, but there will be an objective within the paper that obviously refers to education in particular, and it is a key objective. It underpins our local plan where our growth grows and what need is for education. So from a planning point of view, it's very much part of the process.
Right, thank you very much for that explanation, Helen. So it has the right. I haven't seen any more hands up. You're all quite happy to move. So did I see your hand? Yes, Lana.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I just want to endorse what Helen says. The reason this is not elaborated on any further is because the strategic planning forum does not actually deliver education. However, it is highlighted as one of the objectives of it. It's just that we don't deliver it. Slight correction, this matter was considered formally at the place shaping panel. It was received and debated there formally, and it's now, obviously on the cabinet papers, asking for your scrutiny before it's then received at cabinet and then council. It's a key document in that we have to keep updated, especially now that the local plan is, we're just collating all the consultation submissions to the Reg 19, and we're hopefully submitting the timetable to submit to the inspectors in July. And it's important and vital that we have this document up to date to ensure that there are no, what are they called, speed bumps on getting this plan in place by September next year. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lana. Well, the recommendation has been moved and seconded. So all those in favour of the recommendation, please.
I think that's unanimous, Chairman.
Right, thanks very much. Now I'm going to hand back because Steve, the chairman, has rejoined us. And we're now on to Steve, item number 14, member IT on page 224. So over to
and
you.
Emma's the lead member, so hand over to you, Emma.
Thank you, Steve. Can I be the lead officer rather
yes,
than lead member? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Okay.
you wouldn't like the pay associated with this one, Emma.
Yeah, no, I'm much more comfortable in this role. Thank you, Chairman. So in front of you, this has been going on for a while. I'm sure members will recall a council meeting. I do apologise, I've got drilling going on outside my house. Where we talked about, and we've talked about at overview and scrutiny before, the IT equipment. That's been looked at by SEAC, Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee. There was a survey which we had, I think, about an 80% response rate to, which was really helpful and helped to shape that. A couple of reports have been in to SEAC determining the best way forward, and SEAC are making the recommendation that you have before you to Cabinet, which is to approve and retain the current provision of iPads. The report sets out for you, you've got some background there in terms of the key comments and questions and queries that came through via the survey, and that's expanded through in section 2. I think, Chairman, if I can, I would just like to point out at section 3 of the report, we've got many of the issues raised related to the software, and there you can see the frustrations at 3.2 and how they will be addressed at 3.3 with the Office 365 rollout. At 3.4, we have the hardware, and again, the couple of issues that we raised through that survey and how then that can be addressed through various options. So SEAC had before them 3 options, and they chose to take forward the iPad option. What I have done for you at section, I think it's in section 4, Chairman. Yep, section 4, just for completeness, includes the minutes from the Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee. So you can see there the questions and the comments that were raised and how that was then voted on. I will leave that there, Chairman, as I'm sure, as always with this topic, there will be many questions and comments for us to consider this morning.
Thank you, Emma, and I wouldn't be surprised if you're absolutely correct there. I meant on the last comment, obviously. Yes, so we'll open it up. Members, anyone? Okay, Caroline.
Thanks, Chair. Emma, I read somewhere about printing from the iPad, and I can't find it now, but it mentioned that you need a Wi-Fi printer for that. Is that correct? What if you don't have a Wi-Fi printer?
That is correct. So I think the way that it works, it is through a Wi-Fi printer, but I will pick that up with the team, Caroline, to see if there are. You can't hear this drilling, but I can. But I will pick that up with the team to see what there is we can put in place if you don't have a Wi-Fi printer. If you leave that with me, I can look into that for you.
Okay, thanks, Emma.
Nigel Shaw.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I can understand the way TX gone on this. Basically, sort of saying we need to stay with the iPad for the next 2 years because of its value more than anything. Nothing to do with the actual working of it. It's just because if you get rid of it, you're going to have to pay for new ones or whatever else we got. So yes, I can see the 2-year period sort of running out and something else coming along. But I would suggest that we don't invest in more iPads until this 2-year period is finished. So if there's any replacement to be done, I think it'd be a good idea to take the replacements from the people that are not using the iPads and are using their own equipment. When it comes to, I was just thinking about the printers. When it comes to using printers, I use my own laptop. I've got a nice little Lenovo 14-inch laptop, and I can run a Wi-Fi printer from it or a non-Wi-Fi printer. which to me seems eminently sensible. Now, if you take a look at page 225 on the agenda, you've got two graphs there highlighting the survey. The first one has a look at council provided equipment. 14 say it's a pain, only 8 say it works well, and 5 say it works okay. So overall, you've got more saying it's a pain than not. And then if you look down at the next thing, the laptop ownership, see where it says council provided, you've got 3 like it works well, whereas your own laptops, 14 like it. Now, quite honestly, this seems to me to stand to reason that laptops, quite honestly, are a far better idea. So although I do agree with keeping the iPads, not upgrading and not buying new ones, as I say, I think if somebody needs one, take it from somebody who doesn't use the darn thing. Other than that, I can say, yeah, well, I'll go along with it for the time being.
Okay, just to follow up on Nigel's point here. When you look at the survey and then the inferences coming back off the survey in the report, it's quite clear that in actual fact there isn't a preference around iPads at all. And Nigel's absolutely right, because that's what the survey is saying here. What it's pointing to is, if we look at page 228, where we've got the cost associated, we've got iPad current version £500, laptop circa 500. So we then move down to 3.6 on page 228. It says, well, if you wanted to have these facilities via iPads, basically, then you're talking about £1,000. iPads are far more expensive than what the laptop kit is for doing the same job that laptops do. So I'm not quite sure where we're going with this in the future. I'm not seeing where the recommendations are in terms of a review of this in the future. And at what point in 2 years' time, when there will be elections, is a decision taken for then new iPads? So you're coming up to an election period, your iPad replacement due. You've got a very short window to come to some sort of conclusion about replacement when you've got elections in process, the new committee members coming on. I don't know if you can pick up on this, but also just in terms of the cost, there's some clarification I just need around the cost on this. The cabinet agreed to set aside a sum, was it 34,000, something like that, for members IT, which I believed actually was to also as well clarify this cabinet, could cover the cost of laptops as well. So if this does not go, if this does not go ahead for now supplying with laptops, what happens to that money? Is it then go back into the pot and consider saving?
Chairman, I'll pick up the cost point, but I think in terms of the when, it would be useful if Councillor Nurdin, as he chaired the Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee, and I did see him put his hand up, so hopefully I'm not dropping him in it, but to talk through what the committee talked about, that review process and when that would work. So just on the cost, you're right, Council agreed, I can't remember when it was, December time possibly, to put aside that £35,000 should it be needed for member IT. If this is taken forward as the recommendation at Cabinet next week, then it's for Cabinet to determine what they want to do with that £35,000 as part of that decision at that point in time. But I'll pass to Councillor Nurdin regarding the other point, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll let him in a moment. So just back on this 35,000 then, the issue here is, as Nigel, we're funding at the moment in terms of questioning. So Nigel, the point that Nigel made in terms of, there doesn't seem to, when you look at the stats here, it's just evident that the majority of councillors do not favour iPads. They're quite happy with laptops, and that the money has been already set aside for this. So the saving here, the idea of keeping the iPads, when there was actually money put aside to finance laptops, I'm not quite getting the point. I really am not getting the point here in terms of the driver, because money was set aside to do that. And at the same time, this all came back of a report, which was presented pretty quickly, actually, on the rollout for laptops for officers, which had a price tag to it, which was more than £35,000. So, you know, it's about service provision and where we are at the moment. So I'm just going to park that there. And Councillor Nerden, Grant, would you like to make your contribution, please, Grant?
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Just to elaborate a little bit further on the decision made by SEAC, the decision really was taken that we would implement the rollout of Office 365 and see what the effect of having this new software would have on the way things are working with the iPads. The intention is that before the next election cycle starts, in other words, before the end of the 2-year period, we will have another look at this and consider whether it has been as effective in addressing the issues that that were raised at the present time with the BlackBerry software. So that was all that I just wanted to mention to members.
Thank you, Grant. So the idea is there going to be, I don't know, 3 months before the election is due? I mean, this seems a bit kind of, there will be, but we're not sure when.
Can I I'll put a bit more context around that, Chairman, if that's
okay.
So absolutely, as Councillor Nerden has said, the committee were really keen to see how Office 365 embeds and how that hopefully delivers a lot of and deals with, you'll see in there, the majority of the issues around the software. I think with only 2 bullet points around the hardware. Nonetheless, we need to make sure that that works for you as councillors. We need to look at that and make sure that's bedded in. So you'll all be aware that over the next month, there's the training being provided and the move over to Office 365. What I've spoken to the team about is 3 to 4 months' time. We'll then have a survey, for want of a better expression, but probably some drop-in sessions, because I think they're more helpful for you to talk through with me and the team in terms of how's it working, how's it going, has it resolved the issues, is there still things that aren't working, and how can we make it better, make sure that we're absolutely supporting you with the software that you need to undertake your roles, working out, as I said, where those specific issues still are. Then that, for me, absolutely at that point starts to feed into, and therefore what does that look like when we have the elections in 2 years' time, because we need to make sure that we've got this all set up and ready to go, so that in the May, when we've got returning members, we're absolutely clear on how we're dealing with those in terms of equipment. And then with new members, we can absolutely make sure they've got the right thing. And then obviously for those that are departing and no longer with us, get that return provision back in. So that's absolutely on the work programme for the team to make sure that we do that in a timely manner. And as with, you've all contributed to where we've got to now, I'd absolutely encourage you to continue contributing to that, so we can continue to move this forward.
Okay. I've got, thanks, Emma. I've got Councillor Shaw, who does want to come back in. I've also got Peter, and I've also got Tony Adams as well. There may be a funding point back on this with Councillor Shaw, may not be. So I'll ask, is it on the same, down the same road here, Nigel, that you wish to come back on?
That's about IT.
Is it a completely different point?
Yes, well, I was going to make a point about the software.
Okay, well, if you could hold on to that, because I just wonder if it was on the same point, you see.
Okay.
So just to again just firm this up a bit. So you're saying that you would go out and ask for drop-in sessions with members 3 months beforehand. Would we have a scheduled date where this would be coming back for an overview and scrutiny review, say 3 months out?
So what I would propose to do, so 3 to 4 months from now. So once everybody's moved over by the end of April, May time, I want to give it 3 or 4 months to bed in and get settled. Then I would then offer the drop-in sessions at that point in time, so that we can make sure that we've learned from the next 3 months, and that we can make sure we're picking up any issues that will then feed into what do we do heading towards those elections in, what are we, 21, 22, 23, which seems like a foreign futuristic year. And then so that we absolutely are doing this in advance of that turnover time. But it will, in terms of where would it go back into, it's more likely to go back into Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee, because they're the committee that have started this, and it will continue to go back into them. But what we can do, as with all meetings, is open it to all members to attend. That's absolutely no problem at all.
So we've got two routes here in terms of governance, haven't we, Emma? We would then back out of that, come with another recommendation, one way or the other, iPads or whatever, to go to Cabinet, then back through ONS. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's correct. So Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee make recommendations onto Cabinet. So absolutely the route that it's come through today, you will get that as a pre-Cabinet paper if there's a paper that needs to go through, and you will have that route to pre-scrutinise as you are today.
And there's also the other governance route as well to for ONS, if they wish to also have a review as well, of course. That's
you could double up for us, Chairman, if you wish. But we do need to be, we've talked about this before, haven't we, in terms of what committees lead on what. We just need to be mindful of where items go to. I would recommend that it stays with Service Improvement and Efficiency.
Absolutely, Emma. But we can also, of course, review issues. We can also review work and issues, anything within the council, apart from planning, of course, in terms of planning decisions. But we could do that if we wish to. Just making that point.
You could.
Okay. Right. So I believe just on this list here, I've got Peter first, then Tony, then Councillor, Dave after that. So far away, please, Peter.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the age-old joke of a gentleman driving his car, pulls up alongside a local person and starts asking directions, to which the response comes, well, I shouldn't be, if I were you, starting from here. I suspect if we'd been looking at this whole matter from, say, 2 or 3 years ago, we might have come up with a totally different solution. However, we are where we are. Personally, I find the iPads of little use, and I use my laptop most of the time. I use my iPad for sending and receiving emails. I may be unusual, I don't know. Essentially, we need to not spend more money until these iPads have exhausted their usefulness. Certainly, when we come to replacing them, I would trust that there's a proper review of all of the hardware and software to go to the various committees so that we can take a proper informed decision based on usage that people have and need going forward. So can we just get on with it now? Because basically, essentially, we are where we are. I propose the motion to go ahead, please.
Yeah, we're still in debate at the moment, Peter. So Tony, you as
okay, but I still proposed it.
Yeah, no. But you might have an amendment coming forward there as well, which comes first, Peter.
Thank you, Chairman. So I've got no strong feelings about laptops or iPads because I've got an HP all-in-one computer, which is a fantastic piece of equipment, and I can see 25 people on one screen at a time and up to 125 people overall. But being trained in motions in a former life, what the motion says or doesn't say, that is the crucial part. And if you read this, it doesn't say anything about the the 2 years. It just has to retain the current provision of iPad. If that is passed in its current form, it could be taken to me that we've already taken the decision that we will retain the iPads even after 2023. And I don't think that should stand as it is, because as I said, that's what the recommendation says, not what its intention is. That's what was always drummed into me. So I would like to add, I'll propose the following amendment, Chairman, if I may, that after iPads, you add for the next the current provision of iPads for the next 2 years. That makes it quite clear that that is only for the 2 years and not forever and a day. And also, however, at the end of the 2 years, the final decision on what members want, iPad or laptop or a combination of both, be taken at a full council meeting after the council elections in 2023. And I formally propose that as an amendment, Chairman, because I think it makes everything quite clear on the way forward. And as I said, I've got no strong views, iPads, laptops, whatever. I mean, my own personal view is laptops are better, but I hardly ever use either of them. I feel that really sort of tidies it up, makes it quite clear on the way going forward. Thank you, Chairman.
I will support that amendment, Chairman.
Chairman, may I just come in on that amendment just as a minor, just a minor point?
Just before you do, Emma, I've just got a minor point myself to make here. Peter, you've just seconded that. I may well have seconded that, Tony, as well. So you might have had a thirder here, by the way. It's just the timing, because I see the point you're making, and we've just sort of covered this point about, and yeah, it's all being drawn together, and it's for the points, Nigel, etc. In terms of where the reality is around, how popular iPads are, and they're clearly not in terms of usability. But the point that's being made here is that it's timing. So if you then move forward to 2 years on an amendment on the resolution, the process needs to happen before that to then decide what you're going to do. So what the recommendation here is that you simply retain the iPads for their service use to the end of the 2 years. That's it. But before then, you have a review so that then you can get the orders in for then the replacement of the iPads. Whereas if you go to full council after the election, it's too late. You can't actually do all of the process ordering before that. Was that the point that you was going to make, Emma, or was it a entirely different point?
No, it was that point, and there was a slightly other second point as well. So absolutely, I can understand the amendment because it makes you've got the absolute clarity there. I would suggest that the words are, not wishing to put words in your mouth, but are around exactly as you've just said, Steve, probably 6 months beforehand we start looking at that, make sure we've got that right and tidied up. It is actually a cabinet decision. That's the other point that I was going to make. It's not a council decision. In terms of the decision-making framework, it would be through to cabinet, not through to council, as we are today.
Okay. Well, I think we can handle this, and I understand the point you're making, Emma, around the second point you made around it being a cabinet decision. I think the position on the amendment, Tony, because you did propose it. So I know Peter seconded it, but I'm actually going to propose a slight change to the amendment that we have.
Fire away, Steve.
Yeah, that we do ensure that there is a full review, and it's 6 months.
Are you
So that would be
proposing
6 months before May 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah, Emma, 6 months before that. 2023.
Yeah,
that gives
correct.
you
I think it'd be 2022,
May.
wouldn't it, Steve?
Yeah, so that would be October
Of 2022, I think.
2022, something like that, Emma.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay, so that would work. Then secondly, we could have another amendment as well, because I know the point you're making about the report in front of us is for the cabinet, but we of course can ask the cabinet, and they can do it if they wish to, make a decision that it comes to full council. The cabinet have that within their gift to make that decision. It's a matter of judgment. So we're entitled to ask the cabinet to agree that it goes to full council for final determination. We can ask that.
You can absolutely ask that, Chairman.
Right. So that would be Amendment 2, separated from the First Amendment, because then it's not tracked in the First Amendment in terms of sentiment, if you see what I mean. Does that make sense, Tony?
Yes, it does. I'm just wondering, at the end of the day, Steve, how the amendment will now sort of fit with us saying that we want, which is quite right, I quite agree with it, that we want a review in October 2022. Where would you propose that go in, or what would you delete from my original motion to include that October 2022?
Can I assist, Chairman?
Yeah.
I wish you would, Emma. Yes.
Yeah, I'll give it a go, Tony. So we've got at the moment that Cabinet approved the recommendation from the Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee to retain the current provision of iPads, comma, for the next 2 years.
Yeah, fine.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Officer, we could then say review of provision post the 2 years to commence in October 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we could have a second, and then we could have another amendment, which is also that we ask the cabinet for the final determination on replacement IT for members to be made by full council.
Absolutely, you can request that. Absolutely,
yeah, we can request it.
Yeah,
which will cover your point, Tony, that you was making in that.
Yeah, that's fine. I believe
it'd be foolish to put it all in one. I think it would just be a school boy or girl error.
Quite happy, Chairman. I can assure you, I'm quite happy to accept the amendment as now determined.
Okie dokie. All right. Right. So we've got that, and I think James, you've probably written this up with what Emma said as well. Before we move on, though, is there anybody else that has anything else to say here?
You've got Councillor Catchpole and Councillor Shaw, Chairman.
Sue and Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. What I'd like to say is I was at the SAEC meeting and really disappointed that there wasn't an option put forward with any flexibility. So the option was to have all 47 councillors to have a new laptop. Now, to me, we'd already had the feedback that some councillors are perfectly happy with what they've got, whether it's because they're county councillors, so they already have a laptop, or because they already have their own laptop. So that's the first thing I'd want to say, that we weren't given all the options at the SAEC meeting to give us the flexibility so that those who are struggling with the iPads, for whatever reason, could have had the option of having a new laptop, for which, as you said, Chair, the budget had already been approved. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The other thing is the cost of reconfiguring all these iPads with the new software and so on, and the inconvenience, because we've been asked to go to the council office to drop them off and then go to the council offices again to pick them up. Whereas had we had laptops provided at this point for those who needed them, that would have been a cost that wouldn't have been incurred by the council. So they're the two things I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, and just before we move on, I was at the SAEC meeting, but I had to leave early because there was a town council meeting and there's an important item there I had to attend to. I also did watch the recording as well, and as far as I can recall, there was a vote by 5 members for, 3 members against, 1 abstention, and there was 1 member missing. So we're talking about 5 out of 10 committee that voted for this. We have not got a unanimous position in this by any means, but it's just normally on these paddles or committees, you normally also have a look at how it was determined as well. So just for accuracy as well and transparency, I believe that was the vote grant that took place there. I think it was Nigel next. Nigel Shaw.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to add to the amendment that no new iPads should be, or replacement iPads should be bought until this is completely settled. Because if you buy more iPads now to replace ones that may be broken, you've got another 4 years of life in the darn things. And I'm sure Apple heads will love that. But people who don't like Apple won't. And the other thing that I was most surprised about is that all these Apple heads have agreed to go with Microsoft software.
Chairman, can I come back?
Yes.
Yeah, I won't use the references that Councillor Shaw has just made. However, in terms of iPads, you are provided those for your term of office and they are expected to last your term of office. We wouldn't just buy you a new iPad because we felt like buying you a new iPad. We're talking about this is council public money, so we make sure we spend that appropriately. If an iPad has broken, absolutely we would need to replace that for the member because you need that for the work that you're doing. So what I would say is I wouldn't want to put that restriction on because I can guarantee if someone breaks it, I'm not going to be very popular because I can't give you a replacement bit of kit and I can't enable you to do your job. So I don't think that that's very sound, but I can absolutely assure the committee that we will not spend money unnecessarily. As I said, it's public funds. I would just like to, Chairman, if you will indulge me, just come back on the point that Councillor Catchpole has made about the reconfiguration and the cost of the reconfiguration of the current iPads. We've been talking about the move to a joint domain name and Office 365 for, well, it feels like forever now. These dates have been in the diary for quite some time. And the cost of doing this would be the same whether it was going on to new equipment or updating your current equipment. There is no different in the cost. The license cost is the same. And as requested by all councillors, we are putting on a training programme for you all because you have all asked for that. So I did just want to come back on that and then I will leave that there, Chairman.
Chairman, may I just ask one little thing? The Office 365, I presume you're going to use the cloud version of that, are you?
Yes, we are.
Nigel?
Very quickly, Chairman. I'm afraid I can't support Nigel on this one. Emma is quite right. If somebody accidentally damages the iPad, or you never know, with iPad, one might pack up. You expect a member to struggle on without one for the next 2 years. Really, it's unreasonable to expect that to happen. Sorry, Nigel, I can't support you not buying any new iPad.
But people are using their own, aren't they? Their own laptops and such.
Not all of them, Nigel, not by a long shot.
No, but if somebody's breaks, they can have mine.
Chair, we have the recommendation and the amendment. Can we move on now, please?
Yeah. Okie dokie. I've just got another point of clarification though. It's also mentioned in here that there was 3 options. We've got one option here that's been presented from, I'm just looking at process moving forward on this. We've got an officer's report from yourself, Emma, that went to the SEAC on the 3 options, and then on the recommendation, I'm not actually seeing the 3 options coming forward to us. So it's like it's taken from the service improvements recommendation only, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, because Service Improvement Efficiency Committee make a recommendation to Cabinet, and the recommendation that they chose to make was the iPad retention. That's why that is in there for you, because that's the recommendation they've chosen to take to Cabinet. If it helps, Chair, and I do agree. I think we've kicked this one around quite a while. There are at 3.8, 3.9 and 3.10 were the 3 options that were put forward to Service Improvement and Committee. So you've got 3.8, which is the iPads, 3.9, which is laptops, and 3.10 is use of own equipment. if that helps for ease of reference.
Okie dokie. Okay. Right. Thank you. And just one other point as well, which do need to clarify. It said here that there wouldn't be any support for laptops for any other members for any other reasons. For instance, an iPad. I know that the chairman of the council can't chair a meeting via an iPad, nor can the planning chair, and nor can the ONS chair. So unless I use my own laptop, if it's serviceable and usable, then I have to use a council laptop. So is this actually saying that in the future, the chairs of those committees would not receive support in terms of being able to chair these meetings or a laptop?
So in terms of going forward, there wasn't, through the surveys and through all the discussions, there wasn't an overwhelming need for chairman to have anything different. However, saying that, of course, we will support the chairman in any way we can in the committees that they have, and we can work through the best way to support you, depending, who knows, we may be back in the chamber at some point in time, albeit socially distanced. But we will continue to support you in the best way that we can. Okie
dokie. Right. Okay. So we've got the two amendments which I've helped to also frame as well, Tony. However, I am actually going to ask somebody else, even though I've helped to frame that, to second that, and then we'll move to the vote. Just because, even though I helped to frame it, could somebody else second those two amendments?
I'll second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Ken. Okay.
Chairman, may I interject? Sorry. Could we possibly just have those recommendations read out to us again?
Yeah.
Because it was a while back, and just so we know precisely what we are voting on, please.
Yeah,
thank you.
Of course.
Chairman, would you like me to read them out?
Please.
That Cabinet approve the recommendations from the Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee to retain the current provision of iPads for the next 2 years, and to hold a full review of members' IT provision by October 2022. And the second one was to ask Cabinet to agree that the final decision will go to full council. The final decision on members' IT provision will go to full council.
We all clear? Okay, I will be voting against that. The only reason is that I believe the money is there and we should be proceeding now, but that's the only reason. Okay, so move to the vote. All those in favour?
Can I just ask whether we're voting on 1 and 2?
Sorry, this is muffled.
Sorry.
Who's speaking?
Yeah, it's Grant here.
Oh, hello, Grant.
Yeah, just I'm not in favour of going through four committees to get to a final decision. So I don't intend to support the second motion, but I will intend to support the first one.
Yeah, we take them separately.
If you could, yes, please. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry, I meant that actually. We're taking the first one first. Sorry, Grant, that's actually been very helpful. I thought I'd. Yeah, so we move the first one. We move the first amendment, which is on reviewing, as James has outlined first. Then we move to the second amendment after that. So on the first amendment, all those in favour?
Chairman, for the benefit of clarity, would you like me to take a roll call? Would that be easier?
Yeah, it would be easier, yeah.
Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Brennan.
Sorry, James, just hold on 1 second. It will probably be easier. Can we have members give me 2 answers or give James 2 answers? So recommendation 1 is about the review. Recommendation 2 is about who makes the decision. So in your response, can you give 2 answers, please?
Yeah, it's a bit quicker, Emma, won't it?
Quicker, yes. Yeah. Chairman, Councillor Adams.
4.
Councillor Brennan.
4.
Councillor Bullman.
4 and 4.
Councillor Catchpole.
4 and 4.
Councillor Karimi Gouvan-Lou.
against and 4.
Councillor Kelly.
4 and 4.
Councillor King.
4 and 4.
Councillor Morrell.
4 and against.
Councillor Nerdon.
4 and against.
Councillor Pratton.
4 against.
Councillor Riley.
I've never seen a vote like this. Against and 4.
Councillor Shaw.
Abstain and 4.
Right, I'll just have to count those up. 1, 2, 6. First one is 9, 4, and
2 against, 1 abstention.
2
James?
against, 1 abstention. Yeah. And the second one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4, and 2, 3 against. So they're both carried.
Okie dokie, thanks, James. Okay, we at the beginning of the meeting indicate that you know we've got a lot of items here. We actually have made quite a bit of progress, though. It's 5 to 12 now, so rather than starting another one, could we take a half an hour lunch break now? We agree with that? Yes. Let's split it now. Wonderful. Okay, so all back at 12:25.
And can I just explain what will happen in that half-hour break? So Leah has set up breakout rooms, and we'll put everybody out into a breakout room. But please still keep your video muted just in case it doesn't work. And we will put a holding screen on to explain that we're in a break, and we'll be back shortly. So if you see yourself moving into another room, don't worry, we've not kicked you out. You've just gone elsewhere for the time being.
Wonderful. Okie doke. Thanks very much. Right. See you all 11:25.
joined the meeting. James, I think I'm still in the breakout room.
Are you? No, you should be here.
You're with us.
You're in the main
Oh,
room.
am I? Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
you're
Thank
here,
you,
Joe.
everybody.
I can see you.
Thank you, Steve.
I know you're here because I can see you.
I couldn't see anybody else.
Right, so we got Peter, Tony, Grant, David King. Leah, are we live streaming again at the moment?
Yeah, we're still live streaming, yeah.
James, do you want to take the roll call again?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Adams, can you confirm you're here?
I think he's back here, James.
Oh,
He is there.
I think has he frozen?
Tony,
Councillor Adams, you're mute.
We go. Yep, right. Found the unmute. Yep, I'm here, James.
Yes. Councillor Brennan.
Present.
Councillor Bullman.
Here.
Councillor Catchpole.
Present.
Councillor Karimi Gubanlu.
Present.
Councillor Kelly.
Present.
Councillor King.
Present.
Councillor Morrow.
Present.
Councillor Nurden.
Present.
Councillor Bratton.
Present.
Councillor Riley.
Present.
And Councillor Shaw. Councillor Shaw. Can't see Councillor Shaw.
Oh, I believe he's just joined again, sorry.
Councillor Shaw, can you confirm your attendance? Meeting. You mute, Councillor Shaw. I can see that you are here.
Yes, I am here.
That's all. That's all the members, Chairman.
Occasionally.
Thank you, James. Right, we'll move to item 15, which is fraud, review of fraud policies, page 232. Rodney and Emma are going to present, so I guess it's you first, Rodney, is it?
Thank you, Chair. I'll do this very quickly. As I got in front of you, 3 policies: the counter fraud, corruption and bribery policy, the anti-money laundering policy, and the whistleblowing policy. So it's good practice that policies are reviewed every so often, and indeed these policies have been updated in line with latest best practice. These policies were considered by the Audit Committee on the 11th of March 21, and they will be making their recommendations to full council on the adoption of these policies, as that is where the Audit Committee reports to. But very much these reports are before yourselves and for the Cabinet, very much for completeness and for your endorsement as the executive before they go on to full council for final approval. That's all I was going to say on the matter, Chair.
Thank you, Rodney. Are you okay, Emma? Nothing to say?
I'm more than happy, nothing to add, Chairman.
Okay, right, I'll open this up. It's a pretty factual report, but Grant, obviously, I'd like you in first, being on the Audit Committee. So fire away, please, Grant.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, these policies were considered at the Audit Committee, and I'm happy to endorse, and we were happy to endorse them. So I'd like to move that ONS also endorse those policies. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, I think we could probably move to resolving this pretty quickly, actually. There's a statement of fact in terms of the policies which need to be in place, including the important one around whistleblowing, etc. procedures. Are we happy to proceed to the recommendation? Yes. So the recommendation on page 234 to recommend to council counter fraud, corruption and bribery policy, anti-money laundering policy, whistleblowing policy. All those in favour?
That looks to be unanimous, Chairman.
Very much. So we move swiftly on to agenda item 16, page 279, Plumstead Road proposed compulsory purchase order. And welcome again, Phil. Fire away, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll keep this fairly brief, but obviously happy to pick up any questions. This has been an ongoing and fairly long-term desire to create and establish a junction on Plumstead Road to the north of Brook Farm and serving what is Broadland District Council owned land to the north. Those discussions with the respective landowners were going well. We have funding in place to deliver the junction, but at the beyond the 11th hour, really, at the point where the landowners to the south need to sign what is called a Section 278 agreement, which allows highway works to be carried out on their land. They weren't prepared to sign that for various reasons, and we've basically hit a stalemate. We could just sit and wait wait until they are in a place where they can sign it, but in order to try to progress this matter without delay or without significant delay, then we are seeking effectively council agreement to pursue a compulsory purchase order. That doesn't mean the discussion stops. We will continue those discussions, hopefully reach an amicable agreement with them. But if we don't, then we do have that fallback of a CPO. I'll leave it there, Chair Bum. As I say, very happy to pick up any questions.
Thank you, Phil. I can see the nature of the order and the reasoning around what's going on. I think that's well read actually in the report. And again, I think this is one where we simply need to give the go-ahead for this. Negotiations are ongoing, as we know, Phil. Hopefully it doesn't come to the compulsory purchase order. This will be in place should that be required. Oh, I've got Tony here. I'm going to actually propose that we do agree to this, but before I move to a seconder, Tony, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just a quick question to you, Phil, because you know everything, of course. Is this as a result of what we considered at a planning committee meeting quite a good while ago, and there's about a 50-yard or whatever strip between the two, and the landowner proved or still proving, so it would appear, particularly difficult over this? Is that particular piece of land?
Yes, Councillor Adams, there is what is called a ransom strip. So it's actually it's on, I think there's a land ownership plan in the appendices which shows that strip at Appendix 3 in yellow. So that is in the ownership of Lothbury, and Lothbury have the option agreement on the land in Lilac, which lies to the south of that ransom strip at Appendix 3. So yes, there is a ransom strip. There are more complicated reasons as to why they are reticent at signing the Section 278 agreement, which I'm probably not inclined to go into in detail in public forum. But as it stands at the moment, they are simply not agreeing to sign the Section 278, which is why we're in the position that we're in. Chairman, if you'll indulge me, there's one final point to note. Clearly, what we need to do is compulsory purchase the land, which will require the junction to be formed. That will include also an attenuation lagoon on the southwestern corner, which isn't shown on these plans because it hasn't been fully designed yet, but there is a slight additional parcel of land that will be needed. And in terms of the planning, you have seen this before at planning committee, but again, due to the passage of time, it's likely to come back before the planning committee, probably in May at some point, Councillor Adams. But that is clearly a separate process compared to the CPO process.
Right, Tony. Is there a, could I have a seconder, please?
Apologies, Chairman. We've got Councillor Bullman with his hand raised.
Sorry, Peter. Missed you there.
I'm easily missable, so some say. Phil, should this go all the way to compulsory purchase. Have we had legal opinion on the likelihood of our case being successful, and what are the chances of it being successful, and what would the cost be if we lost?
So in terms of legal advice has been sought prior to the report being written, and also it has helped inform this report. So yes, it'll be an ongoing process of seeking legal advice throughout this whole process. At this point in time, there is no reason to believe that we wouldn't be successful. In terms of the costs, the key costs through this process would be our own legal costs if it goes to inquiry. So effectively, what may happen is we would serve the notice, and it may well be that it's not objected to, it's not challenged, and in which case we can proceed without going to inquiry. If it is objected to, then we end up at an inquiry, and we'd probably have, we would have cost of a barrister. And then there would be, again, if we are successful, the compensation costs associated with acquiring the land. Now, those compensation costs, people will be familiar with the fact that a ransom strip can sometimes have an inflated value. But my understanding, because I've sought legal advice on this point, my understanding is that inflated value is not normally paid as part of the compensation payment. Effectively, it's not taken into account when that is agreed by a valuer. So the costs would be our own legal costs, and then the payment for the land. The question in my mind, and I don't have an answer for you now, I would hope and expect that the value of the land could be covered by some of the funding that we already have in place, which is referred to in the report.
And if we were unsuccessful?
Then we still are simply paying our own legal costs. It's not like a loser pays all costs. It would be our own legal costs.
And realistically, what might we have to put aside for that?
I would be, for something like that, I would be disappointed if we were paying much more, in excess of 20,000. I would be surprised if we were paying less than 10,000. So somewhere between 10 and 20,000 for all of our legal costs associated with that.
Okay, thank you.
Which is about standard, Phil. Regardless of local, it is. Yeah. But hopefully, with this in place, the developer may well come to the table, so to speak. Okie dokie. So Grant, I did see your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just a quick question. I know that Phil mentioned valuation and ransom value, that sort of thing. I know that there is a perception that if I do something to my property, it will affect the value of the properties surrounding my property. And I know that when Broadland purchased that piece of land, which is adjacent
Join the meeting.
Sorry, somebody joined the meeting. We paid a considerable amount, what I would have called over the normal price for that land. Would that affect the compensation, which would, of course, I don't know, make it exorbitantly expensive to acquire this under a CPO?
Yeah, all I can do is refer back to that legal advice, because I had exactly the same thought in my mind, Councillor Nurdin, that would we have to pay an overinflated price for any land acquired through the CPO process. And the legal advice came back saying that no, where there is a ransom, you wouldn't normally be expected to pay the inflated price. Effectively, you'd just be paying the price for the value of the land without having regard to the ransom value. I was also advised by the solicitor that compensation payments and CPOs can be a complicated matter. which when a solicitor says that to me, I always get a bit nervous. But having said that, I can still, refer to that advice which said in normal circumstances, a ransom value is not included.
Okay, Grant?
Sorry, yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, just clarify the point as well. I've been aware of where you've had a valuation on land of perhaps 1.5 million. Ransom strips come in up to 12 million or even more. I know the cases actually, and they're always valued at the land value. They never ever recognise a ransom strip. It's a ridiculous premise in the first place. The law just does not recognise that, and that's always the way. And as Phil says, they can be drawn out. They can take a year and a half, longer sometimes, which is why the county is always reluctant to go down that road. However, when you're in the situation that we're in here with this roundabout, clearly it's something that needs to be done. So completely understand this one. And again, I will move and ask for a seconder, please. Caroline? David, thanks. Okay, all those in favour?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Wonderful. Agenda item 16A, which is the public sector duty annual report. And Sue White's going to lead on this. Fire away, please, Sue.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will be aware. Can I just check first that you've all received this report, because I know it was sent. Just give you a few seconds to get it up. Oh, I think Caroline wants to ask a question, Chairman.
Yeah. Fire away, Caroline.
Sorry, I can't get it on my iPad because I'm using it for Zoom at the moment. So I've got no access.
Would you like me to share my screen for this item?
Useful, yeah.
I think that'd be useful for all members, because we've got a late report in, and I know over the last sort of 12 years, last year, we do seem to be getting a lot of late reports in. This is a problem with technology. Councillors using an iPad simply can't
Join the meeting.
Reports. Where is that noise coming from? Do you know, Emma? Does anybody know?
Not entirely sure.
Yeah, it's a councillor trying to join on and watch on their phone, and it does an announcement that's what it is. But I know who it is, so don't worry. It's Councillor Vincent.
It's been about three times now.
Yeah, I think he's having problems connecting, but I think we're okay now.
Is it a member of the committee?
It's Councillor Vincent, Chairman. Sean.
Okey-dokey.
Are you happy for me to proceed, Chairman?
Yes, please.
And you can see my screen, yeah. Okay. So this is, as it says, the Public Sector Equality Duty Annual Report. Members will be aware that we have a statutory need to report annually on how we've complied with our duty under the Public Sector Equality Duty, as is required by the Equality Act. You'll see if I flick to 3.1. 2019 was the first year, so last year was the first year that Broadland and South Norfolk councils reported jointly on our shared equalities work. And during 2020, the responsibility for equalities was passed over from the policy team to the governance team, which is why I'm presenting this to you today. The report, which I'll get up in a moment at Appendix A, just highlights some of the activities and work which we've undertaken as councils during 2020, paying particular attention to how these meet our requirement to comply with the public sector equality duty. Okay. And just flick back to, it's proposed that Cabinet approves the appended report for publication in order that we meet our statutory duty. So this is something that we absolutely have to do. So if I turn to the actual annual report, you can obviously read this, or hopefully some of you will have read it at your leisure anyway. Here listed are the 9 protected characteristics contained within the Act. And our duty is to 1, eliminate unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation. 2, advance equality of opportunity between people who share one of these protected characteristics and people who don't. And 3, to foster good relations between people who share a relevant characteristic and those who don't. Through the report, I've just demonstrated just some of the ways in which we've complied, and I have split those into how we've met these for our residents through various things, help hubs, impact assessments, housing solutions, and also, as we are required to do, also for our staff. So how we have met all 3 of those points for residents and staff. I can't really share all of it going through unless you want me to share it so everyone can read it, Chairman.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. So if I start from the beginning, if you let me know, obviously, when you've read each page. Okay.
I see there's a lot of mention of staff. Is there a similar sort of reference to members?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. A reference to staff?
Sorry, I was just asking about if there's, because I see a lot of reference to staff, for staff, but is there also something referencing for members?
We're not required under the duty. This report is really just to cover our duty under the Equalities Act. So it's for public companies to report on how they meet the requirements for their residents and for their employees. So this is very much a statutory duty. Okay for me to move on?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So this is how we've complied with the Act itself in respect of point 1, which is elimination of unlawful discrimination, harassment, victimisation. Okay, and that was for our residents. This is in respect of the same issue for our staff.
Yep.
You'll notice there is member training, which will have been rolled out to you all through Skillgate that you should have all been asked to complete.
Yep, sir.
Okay. And still on staff.
Yep. So.
Okay. So moving on, this is point 2. So this is the advance of equality of opportunity between people who share a relevant protected characteristic and people who do not. And again, we start off with the residents of how we've met that obligation. I would stress that these are just some. Obviously, we can't possibly report on every way in which we've met these requirements. They're just a kind of a select highlights.
Thanks. So.
Okay. Okay, and for our staff.
Yep.
Okay. And the third point, fostering good relations between people who share a protected characteristic and those who don't. Again, for our residents. Okay, and that third issue there for our staff. Okay.
Yeah.
And then just a small part on looking ahead, our plans for 2021. Obviously, some of the things that we were going to do in the past year have had to be put on hold. So we'll be picking those up as soon as restrictions allow us to. Okay.
Yep.
Right. So happy to take any questions.
We go back to full screen.
Yep, sure.
Okay. Yeah, just before we open up for questions, I've just picked up these comments here from Nigel, Brennan, and also David King about can we refer this to next meeting. We're at Cabinet Agenda meeting here. So these reports are going through to Cabinet next Tuesday. They are late reports that sometimes occur at Cabinet, and therefore we also get them late as well. Of course, because we're a week in front of Cabinet, it makes it even more difficult for us. And as I was saying previously, I know that there's been pressure in terms of officers around COVID, etc. But we do seem to be having a fair share of late reports. So just wondering, don't need to comment on this administration, could perhaps take that on board. But we have to consider this today because it's going to Cabinet next week. We can't defer this. Okay. Right, so open it up for any questions. Okay. Right. It's a statutory audit. All companies have to do this as well. And previous life, I was heavily involved in signing these off. Actually, it's a statutory audit. The thing I liked about this report is that the first time, I don't recall seeing this before, we've been given examples of actually how we are making sure the policy is in place. And on these audits, one of the key things, whenever you just see them saying you comply, you do this without examples, there's always a bit of a question mark. So to see the examples in there gives other bodies, etc., a good inkling that in actual fact you do mean what you're doing, and it is in place and operating accordingly because you've got the examples. So really support the administration actually putting these examples on there. Not all, of course, as Sue said, but I think that's a really, really good thing to have in there. And I think in the future, it'd be great if we could also continue with the examples. It does demonstrate to all bodies beyond the council what we're doing as well. And on that basis, unless there's anyone else, I recommend that we accept the report. It goes through to Cabinet.
I'll second the Chairman.
Apologies, Chair. Councillor Nurdin had his hand raised, I believe.
Right, okie dokie. Grant?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it was just a thought that I had when I was reading through the report. From what I've gathered, Sue was saying is that it is each company that is required to put through a report, but this is a combined report of two sovereign councils. And I was just wondering why it was not put through as Broadland's a report and a separate one done for South Norfolk. That was just a question that I had on this report.
Yeah, Sue, could you respond, please?
I think Emma's got her hand up. This was agreed before my time, so I'll let Emma comment on this.
So because this talks about staff and residents, as members are aware, staff are part of the one team, hence the report needing to be one, and residents, obviously we've covered residents across both districts. That's the reason for it being the way that it is, Chairman.
Are you happy with that, Grant?
I don't know. I just wondered that if it's a statutory duty for each body to put their own report in. I know that it's one staff, but this report reflects it's two councils as being one council, and it's I would have thought that it would be the work of each council that would be reflected in the report, not make reference to what the other council is, even though it is undertaken by the staff as such. But that's if that's what Emma has indicated, well then I'll have to accept it.
And I think, Grant, there's a number of areas where I'd certainly agree that, and we've had this discussion before about, represent Broadland's part sovereign council. However, one of the key issues here of employment is that we're on these one team contracts now, Emma. So on the one team contract, the employment status, grievance procedures, which are key to this as well, the protected characteristics now come under that one team contract. So that's why Yeah, yeah. So that's why this would need to be there in this way. On other matters, Grant, totally agree. There's completely, you can separate the two issues out around policy, but this one's coming under that one team contract, which everybody's now signed up to, and the grievance procedures as well. So are we okay now if we move to seconder for this?
I seconded it already, Jim.
No, Nigel. Do you want to clarify something?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, to come in. I'm sure there's no grievous intent here, but I do feel we're being backed into a corner because we're being asked to consider this in a matter of minutes without being able to get a proper read through. And Cabinet are going to be able to have a week to read it. I just feel uncomfortable with it. Sorry, that's my personal opinion.
No, Nigel, and I think you make a very point, and as chair on behalf of committee members, I've already made the point as well that, you know, when we do get a late paper like this, one thing the cabinet having a late paper, the late paper to the cabinet, of course, is still a week in front, or 7 days in front of us. You can have a late paper going through the cabinet, where I've been asked as chair for the scrutiny to allow it still to go in front of the cabinet. I think we've had 2 of those, Emma, in the past as well, because of scrutiny, and I did one on a call in. But we are where we are. The only thing that can be improved on this is just that we're flagging up, and I think you're making the right point here, Nigel. Actually, just amplifies what I was saying earlier on as well. That you know, having a report like this just before ONS gives us no time at all, and without proper consideration, I guess you're saying that, you know, you'd feel uneasy about just giving the go-ahead on this in terms of reading ability and speed, which all we could do is ask the, you know, administration if they could try to, you know, ensure we do get reports through on time. Really, that's all we can do.
Chairman, if I may, I must apologise to the committee. I missed this off the agenda in error, and it was only picked up very late. So I must take that on the shoulders. Sorry about that.
So the report was only just finished.
I had the report in good time, but it was missed off in error.
Okay, thanks for that, James. Okay, well, that's much appreciated, James. I know we've got another late report. So was that also an error from you, James?
No, that wasn't.
No. Okay, thank you very much. So we've got one here that was in error from James. Thank you for that, James. And I think that was, you know, a really decent thing to flag up there as well for the administration. But we've certainly got other reports, another report here which isn't due to being mistakenly left off the agenda. So I think Nigel's point, the point I made as chair on behalf of the committee, still valid. Just leave it there. I think, Nigel, we're flagging it up, and I'm sure Emma and the team will do their best in the future with the officers, because it's other officers that have to write these reports as well, of course. So we'll leave it there, yeah. Okie dokie. So we'll move to the vote now. All those in favour? Any against? Abstention? Thanks, Nigel. And Nigel. So,
Councillor King.
Yeah, Councillor
Sorry, that's 8 for and 3 abstentions as far as I can see.
Okey-doke. Thanks very much, James.
It's carried.
Okey-dokey. And obviously, we've got the point for the minute as well, James, that's been raised, yeah?
Yes, I've got that, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move now to, sorry, losing track again here. Sorry, agenda item number 17, and I need to move exclusion of the press and public, or proceed. I move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business, because otherwise information which is exempt information by virtue of paragraph 3, part 1 of the Schedule 12A of the Local Government Acts 1972, as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006, would be disclosed to them. I so move.
I seconded. I second.
Thank you.